performance. As if you go back to my doing, you realize that my performance is not questionable, especially if you look back and probably when you checks. I still keep with community work and I still keep with what's expected of me. There's a way that I know when it is politics, and there's a way that I know when to separate when now it is really work to be done. And I know the governor had confidence even in choosing me to come in, even himself, he is a politician. But at the same time, he is also a technocrat, looking at ways and means to really implement his agendas. And as you know, because we did these promises together when we were moving around, and we wish at the same time, with our political experience at the same time, because all these things might be very difficult to separate, but you need both of them at the same time at some given points. There's some areas you must really tackle because our environment has more or less not only one factor at a given time. You realize it just to know when it's politics and when you really put in our professionalism into it. So if you ask me the interference, it might be there, but I believe there is a way that even in my ways, I believe wisdom will also play a role in how to really separate the truth. It might never be that easy, but if I agree with me, I believe there's a way that even the government itself has confidence that this will also happen. The question we asked about the farm inputs and the insufficient farm inputs in terms of the fertilizer, in terms of the tractors probably not reaching everywhere. Same time in terms of having insufficient staff or not having enough, probably even talented or the ones with the right skill to do it happen across. It's a really loaded question because it's not a journey that you say you fix it in 1 day or 2 days. Issue of resources is big, and we know it's a problem across. But for me, if you ask me, definitely as I get into the office, a number of things I'd like to know, and of course I've been doing a little bit of some analysis in terms of the staffing issues across. As you know, it also goes with budgets here and there. But however, I'm looking at an opportunity whereby I've been in the private sector, the number of programs that we've been running differently, that I believe also with the help of partners, this will also help us not only handle staff aspects, but I'm looking at even in terms of resources. How in one way or the other, how they will also be of help in terms of even improving our input basket, where we are doing a lot of fertilizer and the like everywhere here and there in terms of helping our farmers. We've seen that issue of input have really brought a big factor, a game changer within the county of Kakamega. So it's one practice that we wish to really keep and probably promote beyond where it is. The issue of not being enough here and there, programs that we should look at. It might not be enough, of course, we have a bigger acreage that will need help here and there. Or probably we want to see how best in terms of our budgets and how much more and how we can even come up with schedules and timelines that can be utilized, the tractors will be used in different areas at different times. So that's an area that I believe is still touching. We may not answer it in like say, this is what I'm going to do. But I would like to find out where are we and how situations things are and how best we can really make that happen to our farmers. The last question you asked on the cells in terms of Malava having the two major factories for sugar, and in terms of the infrastructure and why the farmers or other the community doesn't benefit in terms of the very service that they really receive. This is a very important aspect because for sure we are the main source where the factories is, and at the same time we find that this is where the producer of the cane probably come from the same areas and the farmers themselves, and we realize that the infrastructure is not well developed and taken care of. I believe this is very important that there should be a payback mechanism that the community really gains from the factory because after all, it's within their area. And that should also be used to develop the very region at the same time. So those are areas that I believe are very important and very crucial to use. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nominee. Our next set of questions will come from Honorable Akedia.
Thank you, The Right Honorable Speaker, I have known Andama for some time as a very strong person. Time, Honorable Speaker, me and Andama had a very nasty incident in 2013 when we were traveling the same route. He lost his wife in an accident. They accompanied him to the hospital. They found him a very strong fellow. We have known each other ever since those days. But again, Andama agriculture as a docket is a very, very, very demanding docket. Given that this is the bedrock of every activity in this county, every activity, virtually every activity, and two, it has the highest employment multiplier effect. If you give it your best shot. And therefore, I come to my question. If appointed to this office, what value will you add to the development of agriculture in this county? And two, are you aware of any challenges facing this department? And how do you purpose to deal with those challenges? Finally, what are the strategies you hope to put in place to ensure availability and access of farming goods to our farmers?
Yes, we have the candidates. Thank you so much, Speaker, to the chair, and thank you for the questions. I think this is very important, and as we just put it, I think remarks, but just given, I think that shows some motivation in one way that you can really recognize that. So much appreciated. Speaker, I know you just asked very important questions that I think very valuable in this department in terms of how am I looking at this in terms of value addition in this very important department within the county. I look at this department, as you just said, especially when I was given the position, I asked myself a number of things. What is that I'm going to bring into this department? I look at it, me personally as an individual, I look at the kind of training that I've gotten. I think that's very valuable in this. And I believe where I'm coming from, I've been a worker and I've made a difference. So I'm looking at the kind of experience and what I've really gained for the last 20 years working in the private sector as an opportunity for the people of Kakamega to really feel the value of their own, coming to work with them and to put in a lot of effort that I've been doing in other counties out there. So definitely, if you ask me, the value addition is from me as an individual, and then two, I'm looking at the value addition also coming from my team. As you know, and I saw this coming, this is the department that has the biggest number of chief officers. That is 4 of them. And I look at it, it's very vast, with a lot of activities that have already been happening. So if you ask me, there's good opportunities, and with the team there, and of course I'm looking at the good will from the government, or the government of Kakamega, to really make this one be one of the, I believe, a flagship area within the departments that's going to make a difference within our people of Kakamega. The second part of this, of course, you ask about the challenges that I might face. I believe there are a number of challenges. There might be no way to say there are no challenges. For example, I'm looking at a challenge of resources. Resources might not be adequate to really make sure that we get everything that we need. But I'm looking for example, resources in terms of, say, we want to get enough farm inputs, say the fertilizer aspects, the issues to do with the staffing, so that we have all of this and the farm implements at the same time. So there are a number of issues and I believe challenges that are going to come in terms of resources as being one of the biggest. So I'm looking at ways and means in terms of resources, how best we can even utilize the resources that we already have around, and at the same time looking at how can we bring in partners that can also come and help us in the development. So this is an opportunity because, as you know, I've been working out there with a number of partners out, and I'm hoping that with that strength of networks, it will be an opportunity to engage and see how best we can prepare to our own. You've also asked in terms of strategies, in terms of how and what kind of strategies we're putting around in terms of farm inputs and also the distribution aspects. I'm looking at our very existing systems within the county, from the top to the wards and to the village. I believe having a village admins and the ward admins at all corners, this is an opportunity. Kakamega County is fast, of course, but using the systems that are already in existence within the administration that will really help in terms of distribution, making sure that the farm inputs really at the same time reaches the people really intended on the ground. Because as you know, if our distribution systems are not well established and well elaborated, we might end up even giving these farm inputs that might not end or reach the beneficiaries. So my hope is that working with the MCAs, working with the ward admins at the lowest level, and probably even working with agricultural extension officers, that with this identification and the farm inputs will reach the intended people at the lowest levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cecm, you have any question?
Thank you, Chair. Which are these pests and diseases control measures that can be employed to ensure farmers yield?
I didn't get the last one.
Which control measures can we ensure that help farmers to get more yields? Yeah. You are the whole question. Which pest and control disease control measures that you can advise to be used to ensure that farmers' yields are not compromised?
Thank you so much, Speaker, to the Chair. Thank you for the question because as it is now, you know, the issue of pests and diseases affect farmers at different levels. Probably, as you just said, this could be a problem even at the planting time, if it is really in terms of the crops. And this could also be happening to our animals, the livestock, at different times of the season. So for me, as you just put it, these are very important things. I will even take it to the next level because of the pests and diseases, which can also affect our farm produce when it is in the storage. So if you look at all this as we just mentioned, I say it's important to really in the beginning because some of the pests and diseases, some of them originate from the soil. So meaning from the beginning, I wish through the agricultural extension officers and the team, as we begin in terms of our farming practices, very crucial that our farmers are taken through the training so that at the end of it all they understand about their soils and also the issue of pests and diseases, and if possible some of them can be prevented before waiting so that we don't need to really come in with curative measures when it has really happened. Say take for example a crop like maize, we need to know from the early stages in terms of preparation of the land, how land is prepared, and in terms of when we are really planting, are we planting the right seeds or seeds that have been infected? Because as you know, sometimes we end up with problems that come from the beginning because we did not have the right seeds, and probably the seeds are not well taken care of in the beginning, so you end up having bad harvest at the end of it all. Sometimes it also the seed when it grows, then in terms of management, or we find this being infected in terms of a disease, probably even the locusts and the like will also come in. So the question is, that's the time we need to really know, and probably through our agricultural extension officer, that's an opportunity to really see how best our farmers are taken through all this at the same time. In terms of our livestock, this will happen in and out of the season. So we should have a schedule and plan when should we, if anything, do vaccination for our animals, so that at the end of it all, we don't wait until they are sick. That's when we start running around. So meaning if we have very good plans, well taken care of with our veterinary officers, we know when we should do vaccination and when the farmers need to be educated the importance of vaccination and how it should be done.
Another one. Do you think we can have an alternative to ugali? We talked about maize, because it has become very expensive to eat ugali, and this is as a result of the cost of production. So can we get an alternative to ugali?
Sure, I know there are a number of food crops that can be done other than ugali. It's only that ugali becomes so traditional and belief around that if you don't eat ugali, you feel vyakula vyashiba. You feel like things have not happened to you. So it's a problem, but I think this is a cultural aspect that I believe in one or the other through education and all that, by introduction of other crops and probably putting them as our staple food. Like now we have the cassava, we have the potato, and even the rice and the like. The opportunity that I believe our farmers are taking through, they can have alternatives as opposed to ugali.
The last one from me. Not all farmers are able to afford private extension services. Any strategies you can put in place to ensure that the extension services provided by the county reaches all regions and farmers at an affordable cost?
Thank you so much for the question, too, to the chair. I think there are alternative ways. I remember, especially with the issue of extension services in terms of the veterinary. I remember there was a time I was in Bangladesh, and we visited some of the agriculturalists and agricultural practices that have been happening there. I learned that there are a number of things that are happening that are beyond just waiting for the government and looking at how the private sector also play a role into the veterinary. And this was more, I was so much interested in the same, and of course we tried to implement it somewhere within Washigishu, where some of the farmers, because we have lesser extension officers that were doing the work around, but we found that as private practitioners, in one or the other, were also encouraged, whereby they would go out and also have group of farmers, or rather group of guys who are doing the animal husbandry. Person who specifically is engaged with them through their groups or through their cooperatives. These people are going out there because now it's more of a value chain. You have the animals, as for me, my biggest service is veterinary, and I have the expertise. So they agree on the costing, on how much whenever they come, say, vaccinate or they bring in their drugs or something like that, which have worked so well in Washigishu. And I'm hoping this will be an opportunity, probably in Kakamega, that people will also engage with the private sector to really beef up the government officers.
Yes, thank you very much, Nominee. And then Honorable Minor has a set of questions.
Okay, thank you to the speaker. I just want to, is a question almost related to what she asked about the issue of extension. But mine lies on what the private sector is able to do and achieve amounts that you are not able to do as a government. And in particular interest, there's this which has run your years that was doing 1 acre fund, and there's a group called Greeks. I know you have it. And from your CV, I'm seeing you are an NGO person. And now, if you look what those two organizations have been able to do in Kakamega in terms of food production, especially maize, they are not able to do. They are even competing with the government in terms of giving seeds and other farming goods. And but the productivity is measured, and we can test to the input recipe, the output. But our food outputs are never accounted for beyond just the costing and the gets there. Nobody can tell how much will harvested in this town in terms of proper records. So I want to understand why are we allowing them, not allowing them, why are they able to do that much that the county government cannot do? This time would have been, and if you think it's okay, if the government of Kabega would copy and compete them, so that within 3 years, it's you doing it. The reason I want to compete them is the cost that we're able to do. The Kabega County as a government should give it at only the end government realize that the farmers state government as politicians help them pay the loans. The loans are a bit expensive. You never realize until now the time of payment. Is there a way you can collaborate with the microfinance that we have in Kenya that you run the same program? Then what you have currently, the public program, you get to the microfinance and implement, just replicate what whatever fund is able to do and do it better. That was my first question. And as we think about it, Speaker just reminded me an issue that we've not talked about. In your ministry, you have a whole department of fisheries with the chief officer. And Kakamega, I believe we are next to the lake, we're next to Lucia. What plans will you have to grow the fish farming in this country? Those are the questions I have.
Thank you, the chair, and thank you for the question. And I'm glad that you recognize that I work in the NGO. I've been in the private sector for this period, and I'm happy you also appreciated the efforts that have happened there. In regards to the 1 acre fund, and even not only 1 acre fund, but any other institution doing a lot of work privately and in the community. For example, as for us, we've also interacted with 1 acre fund. In one way or the other, I worked with them at the inception. We were just beginning off. And that was one of the programs that, in fact, when we were just doing our programs in Washington, with some engagement in the beginning. With the 1 acre fund success, and a lot of things that have really happened within our community, and you know it's across. I somehow engage with them in Lucia, where they've done also now so many other programs with the community. And as we just mentioned, a time comes whereby for us in the public sector, rather in the public sector, record keeping is a big problem. Where our farmers keeping of the records, you may not even, at the end of it, don't even know whether they're really making profits or losses. It's a big issue. But now with 1 acre fund from the word go, from the input to the end, and as you say, it's a very important entity. And I believe not only 1 acre fund, I'm looking at even the private sector that are doing well. And as we just put, I'm looking at an opportunity, and as we just put, this is very important to really see what they do well and how we can really partner in one or the other to help our farmers even get more than what we expect to get even today. So to me, and as we just put it, coming from the NGO sector, looking at how best, if anyone, in any way to make sure that this comes in. But one thing that is noted within these processes is the question of bureaucracy within the government, and which I'm hoping, in one way or the other, to see how to move around the bureaucracy and make sure that things are done on time, and also the issue of measurements and things put in place so that at the end of it all, because the bottom line, we want food security. And at the same time, of course, you talk about the microfinance. We look at now, as I'm coming in, I'll also be in charge of cooperatives. And in the same way, within the cooperatives, majority of these cooperatives, as I've looked around, some of them are not up to their potential, and majority of the people are not into these smaller or bigger groupings that can really give them an opportunity to access credit. Like, for example, I'm looking at the national government coming up with this fund that's going to be launched, I think, in a week's time. Hustlers Fund. I'm looking at that as an opportunity, if anything, if you ask me, if our farmers and our cooperatives and our groups, because this money is not going to be given to individuals, it's going to be given into well-organized groups. So to me, it's an opportunity, as you put it, from what we just asked, it's an opportunity to really open up the access to credit through microfinance that we have been around, and even looking at the hustlers fund that's also coming around. So in other words, it's an opportunity to strategically put our cooperatives or our groups into a way that it's an opportunity for them to really get as much as they can in terms of credit access. And this is an opportunity too for the farmers also at the same time to buy their farm inputs through the same processes that are being utilized by, say, the 1 acre farm and the like. The last question you asked on the fisheries, there's a big opportunity, of course. The question is more, how much more do we tap into it? And I know I relate this to the question of Uganda and how best you can really get into the fisheries and provide even more income and an opportunity for employment for our youth and even for the young people in the community. It's been more looked at it as more fish only from the lake, but I'm looking at the fish ponds. I'm looking at an opportunity for every region and probably even the young people and even the old having an opportunity to really do the fish farming within the same, because an opportunity for us to grow. I looked at the statistics in our CIDP, the proposed one and what's really coming up. The numbers are still very low, and I believe it's an opportunity to really scale it up and see how many more job opportunities can be created. Same Thank you.
Yes, we just come where I like, but let's have give us a question, then I want to get you from that topic.
Thank you. Thank you, very honorable speaker. I have some concerns that I will put across the nominee. One is about we have farm subsidy, we have a subsidy, government subsidy on farm imports. What measures are you going to put in place as stopgap measures to deal with cartels? To deal with cartels, subsidy. Two, we are experiencing the effects of climate change. I don't know what advice you are coming up as a minister, as a CC, when it comes to the effects of climate change. The advice you are going to give farmers in this county, so that we have food security within the county. And finally, how can middle and small scale animal production be made suitable for farmers in the county in terms of environmental impact, economic return, and human food supply? Thank you.
Thank you so much, through the chair. Didn't get the last one very well, but I think the other two I got them. If you don't mind, if you would repeat for me, please.
Okay. How can middle and small scale animal production be made suitable for farmers in the county in terms of environmental impact, economic return, and human food supply? And what should be the key government policies implemented to ensure support livestock farming? I'm talking about small scale farming. We have farmers like the county introduced the poultry farming, but the farmers are not taking it positively because they don't understand the economic return that comes with that project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the three questions. And there's one about the farm subsidy and what are the stopgap measures that needs to be taken into account. And at the same time, we're looking at the cartels who are probably within the value chain. The subsidy program, especially I know it's more on the maize and also on the veterinary services that we subsidize the AI that also happen to be the same. I know it's a good program that I looked around and see the effects and what has really done for the farmers and the kind of food security that's really put in place. I'm happy because the issue of subsidy, I remember when I was doing my campaigns in 2012, this is when I came up with the idea of, I did a lot of mix and fertilizer. people will sell. Like a venture during that period. And I was happy immediately 2013 when the governor, the first governor of Ghana, came into place. It was like nominated now in Livestock. And I remember when I was doing all this at that time, I also put my own challenges within that time, because I remember the biggest problem that also came in was in the distribution, whereby you give this to be given to this population that have been identified. You then into issues whereby a percentage of the same did not reach, and you wonder why. And that was a really big issue for me. But one thing I really had to look for ways in terms of really how we really overcome. Now it's a big issue that's also faced me now, because it also gave me an name during that time. I was called Andama, because that was like my trademark. And then now here I am. I really don't know how to get, but now I'm here in agriculture. More or less doing the Oma here now in a bigger way. But the question you asked in terms of stop-gap measure and how can that really be minimized by really not stop it to the maximum. It's a big issue, but I believe working with the system that we have in place and possibly looking at our distributions and who is distributing where and how. And again, also looking at our procurement in the process of really making that really happen in the best way possible. Because as it is now, we're looking at the biggest vision we have is making sure the household is taken care of. And when you talk of household, we're looking at all the households. We didn't get a mega should not go hungry or should not get into a way that they don't get. But for me, I'm looking at an opportunity that working with my team and seeing how best and learning from the past. I know the lessons learned and how to improve on those lessons that have been learned, and making sure that at the end of it all, in terms of these cartels, we can really see how we can really, elimination might not be that easy, but the question is how and putting systems airtight to make sure that these farmers and the people who really need to really receive the subsidized fertilizer really get it, and the people of Kakamega. This is meant for the people who are the Kakamega residents, not people who are outside our boundaries. For example, people who stay within outside our boundaries, they don't have this, because I know we have close boundaries with our neighbors, who in one way might still inflict or rather come in and get our fertilizer, which is meant for our people. So we really look for ways and measures to really make that get there. And if possible, I'm looking forward to speaking an opportunity to really do some spot checks by calling and finding out, did you receive? Because I know we have all that data. So I'm looking for an opportunity to really have a good data system that really has the names of individual households, and if possible, making follow-ups with my team to see that this is really done and taken care of. And anyone else found in the measure that is not really within the system needs to really take and prove by the laws and our enforcement to make that happen. The second question you asked about the climate change, how our farmers can really be engaged and see the importance of climate change. This is a topic by itself. It looks like it was very far from us, but I think the best thing we can do with the climate change, we can talk about it, but at the same time, I think we need to be very practical. I like what happened, is it a week ago when we had the marathon that was happening around. I'm looking at an opportunity that this could be based within our own wards, where within our own, I believe even in our own meetings, this should be one of the things I believe even in our laws. We need a good laws enacted into the issue of climate change, because we don't really take care of this. It will really affect our food production and everything else that we do. So to me, if you ask me about climate change, it is something that's needed to be done all around in a holistic manner. We talked about and be done practically, even if it's a question of planting trees or doing whatever we're doing around there, to be done in the best way possible. The last question you asked me about the SME and the farmers who are doing small scale farming, and they feel like it's not really adding value, they feel like it's not really taking them somewhere. But I think this is just a question of capacity building. I look at, for example, the poultry farmers. Look at poultry to be a very small thing, and probably they don't see a real meaning into it. But I think there's an opportunity to bring them up, even if they're smaller groups, and even consolidating their efforts to really see how best this can happen within their own community, so that they don't just have a mindset, because sometimes it's just the issue of the mindset. How do we really help them get out of that? I remember that some projects that even began somewhere else, more or less with the poultry, where some farmers thought it's not very important, it's negligible, but by the time they get their first check, or they get their first money payment into their account, they see the importance of why. It may look to be very small, but it's something that can grow. Thank you.
Yes, Andama, you have a big task ahead of you. And as you can see, agriculture is considered boring. When you start started with the whole house, they're not there. But I tell you, if it was ICT, this would be packed, finance would be packed. When you hear agriculture, it's a boring question. And you know, Kakamega is a sleeping giant. A sleeping giant in terms of when I have my friends who come from there, they come to visit me, they wander around. What's happening? All this vast land, all these farming. Let's make it work. Our youth, who are the majority, like we have 60% from age of 18 to 30. And depending on the old people to do the farming and bring them, you know, they are not employed, they don't have to work, but they are not into that farming. Why? It's a boring thing. In fact, it's something called, if you are told when in Shama, you very much annoyed, you are backward. I don't hear that. That in fact, in Shama is a word they are producing, which is not supposed to be the case. Agriculture should be looked at as something which is more attractive. I want you, when you go there, I hope you will go there, to put us back in farming, so that everybody wants to go there. See it in the last 10 years of our evolution. We tried this, but we did not reach where I am positioning. Because I want agriculture to be that place where somebody is in school is just going for agriculture and related subjects. When you come out, all our youth are going to farming, agribusiness, value addition. That's back there. We look at post harvest losses. You know, most of our farmers, they do a lot, put in a lot of input after the maize is out, they start getting wasted. Or if it's tomatoes, you find you are not able to sell, they rot, mangoes will rot before they consume. You know, that thing that makes that attractive. In fact, I was, last time we were having a get together of our class of lawyers. And when we go together, we were surprised that some lawyers had left practice in Nyeri and they've gone into full time. I was very impressed. And why? Because it's more lucrative than even legal practice. People they want to go to the office or pick a tie. It doesn't. Yet there's no money in it. Real money is in. What we need is just give us back this our youth so that they are enthusiastic about it. In fact, something funny is that when we say we have to give some donation, we are trying to give, we say we challenge ourselves that we wanted each person to contribute 1 million each within a year. I was surprised that the farmers in Navy, they paid that money at once, one go, while others traveling to pay in installments. You find this guy is a farmer, and when you call him, even the lawyers in Nyeri, Kiambu, when you call them, different, so that we move from where we are. We don't look at farming as a primitive, but as something which everybody wants to rush there. And once you rush there, it's good that it's combined with cooperative development. Once you rush there, we are able to generate a lot of capital for the county, so that everybody will rush to do farming. Any comment on that?
Thank you so much. I'm seeing the way you have the zeal and the excitement around it. And as we just spoke, if there's a place where there is money, and I know most of the time and all of us want it, the issue of white collar jobs. I think if you ask me today, and in this century, has been overrated, whereby at times you realize I'm not in anything. Mheshimiwa, don't worry about your time, okay? You're doing very well. And I'm not saying this in any abuse, as you put the word Mshamba, it's associated with somebody who is very low, somebody who doesn't even want to take care of himself. But you'll agree with me if you ask me with what I've been doing and what has been happening. I'm looking like agriculture and specifically with issues of value chain. If you look at the opportunity, especially in Kakamega, you know, we are situated in a place whereby we can really take our agricultural practices to the international levels. And then the question is more of how we ordered Nandi and we don't know where the airport is. And now soon, and you look at our airstrip, and I believe it will also be fully fledged airport. If there is any opportunity whereby a majority of the people, and many of us, we go to agriculture when we are done, like you do you say it's your priority job, and so you're practicing law. When you're now 60 and aged, that's when you must say, agriculture. The question is, why did you do it when you're very strong? And when you had all the mind and thinking through the energy. We take it as a second hand, but you agree with me with the kind of excitement that I hope, and it's my prayer, I'm beginning with the youth. Because as it is now, it's been more of agricultural practices done by the aged, not the young generation. And the young generation, of course, you know, as a country, also face the issue of employment. There are not enough white collar jobs around us. And you agree with me even in leadership. And I'm hoping that this is one of the things I can also instill in the leadership, beginning with the speaker himself. This could be one of the things that we do. And don't do it more or less, I know it takes us past time, but still need to get it more engaged with the kind of, even the little resources we have around. For example, gatherings, doing those small gatherings around you, and even taking this to the highest level, for example. And I'm looking to talk on the horticulture, for example. These things can be done for export. And for me, I'm looking at Kakamega as a place whereby I know already the land has been fragmented into smaller pieces. Talking of very large pieces, they're not, they're only very small areas that we have. And I'm looking like, averagely, there should be an acre or half an acre, 2 acres. My plans, and I'm looking at the future, rather than in the next 5 years, what will be getting this opportunity. How we can, I'm looking forward to identification of another other than sugarcane. I know it's really touchy, but I'm looking like not everybody can grow sugarcane. We all know that. But majority of the population can grow other crops. But this other crop, I'm looking at, what is that possible that can consolidate? I even saw this happening elsewhere and this is in India. You know how the population of India is. It's big. But there are some crops that have been also been classified or rather put in given regions. You say this crop is doing very well in this area. And I wish to really put more effort on those. For example, even the tea that you're talking about, we don't have the factory inside. But now, if we really just make it a thing of every now and again, we talk about it. And us as leaders, we lead by example. And we show what kind of income that's beyond being salaried. Because it is in farming that you determine how much you're going to earn. But if you are employed, somebody else determines what you're going to receive. So it's a question to me if you ask me. It should be a very good campaign, and I believe our government, given that is one of the pillars that is put in the issue of food security and the income generation, and looking at the youth, this is where the potential is. I remember you talk about Nominee. I believe Kakamega would be one of those counties that people want to come and see in terms of youth taken care of, the disabled, the entire community engaged, and this is an opportunity that can give everybody an activity to do. If you talk of formal employment, you can just take a percentage. But talk of informal, in terms of agriculture and the like, and looking at cooperatives as an opportunity. Because most of the time you go to farmers, they'll be telling you, see a person, what I cannot really access alone. But I'm looking at an opportunity to do a cooperative, and go even the smaller groups. I don't know if you've ever known about the merry-go-round, the kind of money that goes through those systems. If it is well organized and taken care through a system, it is just a lot to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Malako, that will be the last question.
Mine is just a Peter. From the talk of our chairman, is like the chairman has talked as if we are home again. That's why I want to ask you. We bought or we don't import? Give us a headline in the same place. We bought or we don't import?
I think for me, the issue of importation could be unknown, especially at a time like now. I know we're treating this as an emergency, but if you ask me, especially for Kakamega, it should be unknown. I think it's an opportunity for us, and I know we have it. I was looking at the statistics in terms of the numbers of bags produced. I look at Kakamega, I think we are in the entire country, it should be around number 7, number 8 in terms of production. And I'm looking at the main specific areas. The issue of importation, I will not really take it as really something we need to do. I'll be more looking forward to how much we can export. And that's why you remember in my statement, I said, we have 2 major airports around us. The question I'm asking, I think this is what, in my own first meeting, I'm looking forward to really, when we sit, is like, what is that as a county we can be known for in terms of exporting as opposed to import? Thank you.
I think I'm not aware that most of the food we eat here is actually imported. They are not ex South Kakamega County. They are the tomatoes we take from Chile, we bought it from Ngong. And potatoes we bought it from Okot. We just have to put as account because if you don't import, our people there will hand. So we have a big work cut for you to ensure that first let us be self-sustaining as the Kakamega County. Because we are doing everything, basically everything, even eggs, milk, name it. We are not self-sustaining as Kakamega County. In fact, we are the worst in around here. Okay, we are better than Lucy at least. But Ngoma is much much ahead and the Rift Valley. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Benjamin, for that introduction. Let's maybe have some closing remarks from you and put in mind what I've just said.
Thank you so much, Speaker and Chair, for this session. I must also take this opportunity to thank you all for taking your time and listening to me in all that we've shared. And as we just put it, I think to me it's very important task that the county of Kakamega is doing on me in terms of food security, and at the same time looking at ways to sustain so that we don't really get a lot, or we don't do a lot of importation. I'm happy to mention a few crops or a few products that we really import. Will agree with me what you just said, Madam Speaker, is that those things are doable, and I believe in the people of Kakamega, given the right environment and the right leadership that we have in place, this is going to happen. I believe Kakamega has an opportunity with a new governor that with big dreams, and if I look at his manifesto, there are big dreams that he's looking at in terms of really implementing what the electorates. So for me, as I'm looking forward, and God willing, if I'm given the opportunity, this is an area I really wish to work with the governor to make sure we really implement this, make Kakamega a great place and a place of choice for many to come over. I would wish to bring in all the experiences that I've gained to make sure that our people in the issue of food security, we are sufficient and we can also export. Thank you so much.
Very much, Benjamin Andama. We have